What's up, folks? This is Double D from I Think Sports Podcast, and it's going to be an episode 49 where we are discussing Conor McGregor coming back to the UFC in most spectacular fashion. Also, we'll be talking about Zion Williamson finally debuting in NBA. And on top of it all, we are going to discuss NBA All-Star starters that have been announced just today. So it should be a good one. But now, let me just play the intro music that I have bought and paid a good amount of money for. So, episode 49 coming your way right after this. Yes, it's good to be back, ladies and gentlemen. I Think Sports Podcast, episode 49, available on Spotify, YouTube, iTunes, wherever you please to listen to it. Never forget to subscribe. Never forget to rate and review the show. And as always, hit me up on podcast.its@gmail.com if you have any questions or comments. So yeah, today we are recording this on Friday, right after Friday night, pretty much, in beautiful Vilnius, Lithuania. After the time that All-Star starters have been announced. So we're going to discuss that later on, but now let's hit it off right with the biggest topic of the week, and it's Conor McGregor coming back to the UFC and coming back in the most exciting, beautiful fashion. Amazing card. Well, actually, at the beginning, it seemed to be pretty disappointing. I mean, it was without a question that Conor and Cowboy Cerrone is going to do the heavy lifting of this card. But the card delivered. A great card, even though I thought it's going to suck. I got to say, it was entertaining. Some known names. Holly Holm, one-time superstar, has participated in the co-main event, which absolutely sucked ass. Well, anyway, that happens sometimes. But, we did see Anthony Pettis, it was such a shame, him getting choked out by Diego Ferreira. Whatever. After that, it was, I don't remember actually, but Alexei Oleinik fought there too. Good and entertaining fight. Everything was pretty much very entertaining up until the co-main event, which was Holly Holm fighting Raquel Pennington, and yeah, that did not deliver. There was a lot of hugging, a lot of clinching, and there was no separation. So obviously the fans were let down by that just a little bit. But anyway, still delivered one of the biggest gates. People talk about that it's trending to be one hell of a pay-per-view. Although I hear some controversy there. I hear that it might not be the case, and it's not going to blow the doors off of the usual pay-per-view numbers that we used to see with Conor. Whatever, that's just the background noise. I mean, the main event delivered, and that's the most important thing. That's why people paid money. That's why Irish fans came all the way down to Las Vegas, T-Mobile Arena, and paid good money to see their Irish boy come back. Yeah. What a show he put on. I gotta say, the last time we spoke, it was right before the press conference. It was before the media days. It was before really everything. Even the video blog that they do there. It was even before that. So we haven't we haven't discussed anything how Conor is going to look like, how he's going to come down here and approach this game. And I gotta say, I have to absolutely agree with pretty much everyone who is on the media and said that this was just a fresh breath of air. I totally agree. This was such a fresh approach to this fighting game by Conor. Everything was very respectful, very interesting. Not Conor-like, I must say. Conor has been known to be a nice guy, but he portrays himself to be this gangster and talk a lot of shit and try to get under your skin, try to get into your head. He screams loud, he does outlandish stuff, and that's why he gets everybody riled up, and it makes it interesting, makes us want to watch him, obviously. But After the last time with Khabib, where he absolutely did not get into his head, where everybody felt like this is just over the top, this is getting a bit dark, and really, let's not forget, it was all about his proper 12 whiskey at that time. I mean, he was drinking it on stage, he was talking all sorts of nonsense, promoting his product pretty much. Talked about the fight, of course, as well, but you can see that his head was somewhere else. Not this time. This time he came out focused and gave a ton of props to Cowboy. Now, I would like to think that maybe he did that on purpose because just in case if he loses, he paid all the respects and he could say that, look, Cowboy is record holder in head kick knockouts. He's a record holder in all the UFC, post fight bonuses and stuff. He's a legit opponent. He's got this, he's got that. Even after the fight, as you can see, he was promoting the things that do not involve holding a belt, holding a championship, and winning all the fights. He talked about holding the records and this and that. So he really downplayed the belt part of things and really uplifted, performance bonuses and knockouts and all that type of stuff that Cowboy is famous for. So I thought that maybe this is a bit of a calculated move by Conor. But at the same time, he was really focused. He looked in awesome shape, very fit. I mean, he looked again. It's another good argument that these guys should be fighting in their weight class, in their weight class, not cutting too much weight. Apparently, Conor did not need to cut any weight, although I'm not exactly sure if that's true because I mean he weighed in at the perfect 170. So most likely, he had to do something. It's just weird to me that the guy is walking around at exactly 170 pounds. I doubt that. I'm sure that he had to cut a little, maybe just watch his weight just a little bit. But yeah, still, the truth is that he looked good. He felt good. I mean, he looked healthy, just like Donald. Donald was also very complimentary of that. That finally they're fighting at the normal weight class. Most likely, Donald had to cut, I don't know, maybe 10 pounds, maybe less. Who knows? But we all know that he needs to cut just a little bit. And 155 is just too much of a cut. And, these fighters look drained. They never look healthy. It never looks fun and interesting when they are gassed and they're just killing themselves the day before. And, after that day, finally, it's almost the hardest part is over. And now let's just recover and get to the fight. It's nonsense. We're focusing too much on the weight cut, and I'm happy that these guys fought at their normal weight class where they don't need to go beyond, beyond their capabilities and approach to make some sort of a weight limit. They agreed on this. They looked both healthy. They looked both rested. And then, the whole press conference and media stuff, it's more enjoyable because the guys they're not angry. They're not pissed off. They're not anything. They're actually willing to entertain the crowd, the media, talk things over and answer stupid questions, that obviously all these media members, they do throw at you. So it was entertaining. It was a lot of fun. It seemed to me. It was really something new that we haven't seen from Conor. And I felt that it was amazing. Conor was very complimentary. He was very respectful of Cowboy. They traded actually fun jabs about clothes and accomplishments and just one another in general. I thought it was very entertaining. I didn't need that animosity. I didn't need that shit talking that we usually see with Conor. It was a lot of fun, and all that seemed to be like a little tactic to get friends with Cowboy. To show him all love and respect. And once the ref says, let's go, you could imagine that Conor will open up exactly like he did. So the way he opened up with the with a left hand from Mercury, he opened up with a vicious strike right to the Donald's face. I mean, it was aimed at Donald's face, but Donald immediately ducks. He tries to kind of not exactly take Conor down, wasn't exactly going for the double leg, but, he goes under Conor, changed levels, and Conor then has to not exactly sprawl, but he has to fight this thing over and get in a clinching position. So that was crazy. The way Connor opened up, I thought. I mean, even the camera, the angle of the camera once the round started, it was still from above the cage. So you can imagine that the both guys going to touch gloves. Usually that's what they do once the fight starts. Not with Connor. Connor opened up immediately, just like you could expect him to, because he's a fast starter, and as we discussed, Cowboy is not. So you could see the tactics there, and it was understandable the way Connor opened up. But Cowboy ducks it, uh, gets into the clinching position, and Connor opens up with beautiful shoulder strikes. Something that we have never seen before. Never seen before. I mean, the only one is John Jones. John Jones has thrown that stuff, but it's really just like a distraction of, I don't know, just trying to rattle the brains. Not exactly rattle the brains, but maybe rattle the attention of your opponent and then do something else. It's not vicious. It's not malicious. It's not going to hurt you. It's not going to bust you up. And that's exactly what happened to Cowboy. After 3 or 4 strikes, I think after the third one, Cowboy's nose is busted. And then after the fourth one, most likely, I think after the fourth one, his eye also got messed up. Or maybe that was after the knee. Connor did throw one successful knee after the almost broke, but still were in a clinching position. So I think maybe that's what was responsible for that black eye of Cowboys. But I don't know whether a shoulder strike, whether a knee. That happened very fast, very quick, and very unexpected for us. I think the fans, pretty much everyone, and also for Cowboy, as you can see. After a few seconds, Cowboy's already busted up, and it's not looking good. Then they finally separate. Cowboy throws a kick to the midsection of Connor. Connor blocks it, and Connor answers with a kick of his own, with a high kick, with whole foot touching his chin right at the perfect spot. Cowboy's chin, I mean. And Cowboy stumbles, kind of goes down. Connor swarms him, finally hits him with that lethal left hand of his. And yeah, pretty much that was all she wrote. Cowboy goes down. Herb Dean is watching it very closely. Connor swarms him, goes for punches from all sides of angles. And yeah, Herb Dean, great job by him. Really gave all the chances in the world for Cowboy to recover. But Cowboy had to cover up at one point, and that was basically it. Connor slipped a few more good, accurate punches, and that was over. In 40 seconds, Conor McGregor takes away Cowboy Cerrone. I don't know. I was rooting for Conor, so that was amazing, but maybe some fans could be disappointed. The biggest thing about all of this, is that we still do not have any do not have any answers to the questions that were raised. Is Connor a good fit for this weight class if he really wants to do this? Maybe it's just, hey, let me fight a 155er, but let's not cut weight. Maybe that was his tactic. But obviously, he's not doing that. He's talking about 170 division like he's a legit contender there. So there you go. We still don't know how can he compete against legit 170s. You can say about all the success and everything that Cowboy has went through, but Cowboy is still a 155er. He's a lightweight. He's not exactly. I mean, he's been a very successful welterweight, but to a certain degree. I don't see him being successful against. He lost against Robbie Lawler, who's been a champion welterweight. And I don't see him competing against somebody like Kamaru Usman. I don't see him competing well against somebody like Colby Covington, for example. And, Darren Till lit him up like a Christmas tree. So Cowboy, he's good to a certain degree, but he's got his deficiencies. And those deficiencies really are based on size. So he's still a 155er, just like Nate Diaz, although Conor, really likes to portray Diaz and Cowboy being like big dudes and like, legit 170, legit welterweights. They're not exactly that. They're not welterweights. Their biggest success, they both fought for a title at 155. So I would consider them, lightweights more than welterweights. So there's still question to that. Can he put away a legit welterweight? And is he in a good enough shape to actually sustain all that muscle? I mean, he was very muscular. He was very lean. He looked awesome. He looked very fit, but we all know that that's not the whole story with Conor. Uh, you know, Cardiovascular stuff does not show in your abs, does not show in in your arms, and how good you look. It really just shows in their performance in rounds, in 3 4 rounds. That's when you can understand if the guy is cardiovascularly fit enough. So we still didn't get that answer. And I think the answers about his power, again, I wonder, if it was Kamaru Usman receiving those kicks and punches, does he go down? I would say so. That was a very clean shot, but it was a foot. It wasn't a shin. So still a question there. So there's and Conor himself, after the fight, he said that I still have ways to go. Even before the fight, he wasn't very, usually he's very outlandish and predicts, quick knockout. I'll finish him in inside 2 minutes. I'll finish him inside 2 rounds. He said that a bunch of times. Not this time around. He was actually very welcoming of, again, probably that was just a tactic, but he was welcoming in acquiring rounds, as he said. He wanted to actually get there deep, go back and forth, really test himself, test his cardio, test his will, and just get those get that fighting feeling under him. As he said, that first punch, it was very it was just very eager punch. He missed it badly. I mean, Cowboy ducked it very nicely, and it was just you can see. I mean, Conor actually bumped his hip into Cowboy's face because it was such a brute force. He was just completely putting everything behind that one first punch right at the beginning of a fight, which seems a bit ridiculous and really without a proper timing, and just I would call it a ring rust. And Conor didn't exactly say that, but it did say that, again, he did mention that this is probably because he has been away for so long, and he didn't get enough time to go out there like a legit sparring session, and only took 40 seconds. He only received one shot, which he blocked, by the way. So yeah, this is not good. If you're This is not exactly a tune-up. Let's just put it that way. And tune-ups exactly is what you need, are what you need when you have taken a long time off and you want to fight the best of the best. You need some tune-ups. You need to get those rounds. You need to get those fighting moments. You need to get hit. You need to get pushed a little bit. And so you could start, competing, and you can start understanding again how is the way that you react, how is the way that you push yourself and all that. So yeah, didn't get a chance to see that. But again, I mean, are you gonna really bitch about this performance? This was flawless. He landed 19 out of his 20 shots. He only got kicked once. With again, that kick was blocked. So essentially, Conor didn't get hit at all by Cowboy. He did all the damage, and it only took him 40 seconds. I mean, that's as clean as it gets. That's as beautiful as it can be. Conor McGregor is he's back to our world. And now the question is, what's next? What's next? For me personally, that would be Jorge Masvidal. But anyway, let's just scratch that. How fun is it to be an MMA fan when Conor is relative and magical like that? It's the best time ever. It's the best time to be an MMA fan, when he's there and doing his magic. It's like ever since Eddie Alvarez fight, we were missing that. Because, then he took on Floyd Mayweather at the boxing realm, which is so stupid. And, I watched it. I thought it was competitive until it wasn't, after like a fourth round or something. And then, he goes pretty much doing all the business work and proper 12 stuff, and comes back to fight Khabib. And, it wasn't the same Conor. I don't exactly believe that he didn't train, but I mean, he was drinking on stage. Let's not forget that. He wasn't paying too much attention to Khabib, that's for sure. And he was just talking about proper 12 constantly. the press conference, it was just one huge Proper 12 commercial. So yeah, definitely his focus was not there, and obviously the fight didn't go his way at all. I mean, he got beat, not exactly run over, but he got dominated, and there was no question who's the better fighter. I mean, that's just out of the window. He got beat legitimately. Uh, so so yeah, it's been a while. I mean, Eddie Alvarez fight. What was that in 2016? I don't remember now exactly. But it's been a minute. It's been a hot minute till since we saw Connor being this way, and it's fun that he's back. And after the fight, as you can see, he was all about that business, calling everybody out, calling everybody names, that they're fools and whatnot. So yeah, Connor got that magic back. You can definitely sense that. But still, as you can see, Connor is such a great guy. I mean, he gave all the respect to Donald after the fight, hugged him, kissed him, even hugged it out with Cowboy's grandmother. I mean, it was very heart touching, and heartwarming moments out there with just two dudes, who are absolute badasses, holding a bunch of records together, duking it out in an old fashioned fight, which unfortunately did not go that way, did not take that long. But anyway, it was a lot of fun, a lot of fun, and it's even better that Connor won, and he did it in the way that he did, because now, again, it leaves all these questions. It just leaves more mystique about Connor's game. It's almost, in a way, it's even better that it didn't take too long. He didn't get pushed. He didn't get tested, because now he can say that he's just so dominant that nobody can even test him. He can pull all of that narrative, and I'm sure he's going to use that. He's going to remind everybody that it only took him 40 seconds to diminish the guy who's never been diminished like that. Again, Cowboy is known to be a slow starter. He's been finished in the first round, but never in 40 seconds. It takes some time, to figure this guy out and beat him. He's so unpredictable. He's a wild man on top of it all. It's not that easy, and he made it look like, Cowboy doesn't belong there with Connor. So I'm sure Connor's going to use that for his advantage, and to push the narrative that he's just too dominant for everybody, whatever the weight class. I guess besides Khabib, he cannot really say much about that. But he says that he didn't train much, so there you go. He's got a legit point, because it did seem like he was not focused too much on Khabib. In contrary for this fight, for example, where he was all about Cowboy, all about himself being in shape, being on time, being properly prepared for all of this, and just ready to go, ready to go. So yeah, now the question is what's next, and man, I so much would love to see him against Masvidal. Just please make that happen. I think this would be the best fight ever. I love both guys so much. I really don't know who I would be rooting for. Masvidal is just so entertaining, man, and he just came out of nowhere. Really, with yeah, I don't know, probably with Darren Till win. Although once he finished Cowboy, I mean, again, that was something I did not expect. And Masvidal was the guy who finished Cowboy at the welterweight division and put a stop to his run, because Cowboy was making a lot of noise at welterweight, actually. And, you could start thinking about him as a championship contender until he faced Masvidal, and Masvidal just annihilated him. Almost took him in one round. Cowboy had no business coming out of the first round. But, the coaches let him, and he got messed up real bad. So Masvidal, man, and he's another guy. He's got power. He's got beautiful boxing skills. So I would love to see him versus Conor. And he's going to throw back. He's going to exchange. He's not going to do, the wrestling stuff, which he's very capable of doing, by the way. He's got amazing jiu-jitsu. He's got great wrestling. He's got good cardio. I mean, maybe not Diaz type of a cardio. People say that he got tired after those 3 rounds. I don't know, man. He beat the shit out of Diaz. He beat him really, really good. It seemed like Diaz had no business being there with Masvidal. So I'm not going to shit on a guy that, he maybe looked just a bit step slower. Yeah, a bit step slower, because he was just, putting a whooping on this guy that is a superstar, and we believe that he's the baddest motherfucker on the planet. Masvidal, scratched all of that and just beat the shit out of him, So this would be a super exciting fight. And you know that Masvidal would invite that stand-up war and, the shit talking that would take place. This would be a different Conor. Cowboy's not exactly a shit talker. He likes to be buddy-buddy. If you show him respect, he's going to show respect too. Masvidal, he's a wild man. He's going to talk some smack. And, Conor obviously knows that. So I'm sure this would be entertaining as hell to listen to the press conferences, to the scrums, to their face-offs. Man, I want this fight to happen so bad. And I really don't see a better way for Conor to continue. He said that he wants to fight 4 times this year, maybe 3 times. I don't know. I think Chael Sonnen said that it was 4 times that Conor envisioned this season. That's how he said this season, 2020. So, both guys are healthy. Let's make it possible right now. Usman is not healthy. He's got a cast on his hand, a broken hand. A thumb, a wrist, I don't remember now, but he's got a cast on his hand, so he's not in question. Masvidal is definitely healthy. It's definitely a money fight. He has great publicity at this point. So, man, it's a perfect storm for this fight to happen, because Khabib is fighting Tony Ferguson, and everybody, including myself, I'm sure including everybody in the world, wants to see finally Ferguson squaring off against Khabib, because these are definitely the 2 best lightweights until proven otherwise by Conor, maybe. But Conor has some work to do, to get back there. If Tony wins against Khabib, okay, there you go, a different narrative. Most likely it's going to happen. But if Khabib wins, Khabib is not interested in fighting Conor, and he's the guy who dictates the rules essentially. Who's going to fight him next? So we might not see that fight. And it's going to take some time, because that fight is happening in April. And after that, it's Ramadan. And Khabib doesn't, obviously, he's a religious one. So he's not going to participate in training or fighting during Ramadan. Because, those dudes cannot eat. I think they cannot even drink water at that time, once it's time of fasting or whatnot. So that's out of the question. That pretty much ends that discussion, because the only way for that fight to take place then is most likely September. But really, if we're being realistic, it's most likely not September. It could be later than that. It could be October. It could be November. So that's just way too down the year. The year just started. Conor just fought, and he wants to continue fighting throughout the year. This fight is not going to happen. Unless, I guess that's another narrative. Excuse me. Conor believes that he's going to be the fill-in guy, because he doesn't believe that Tony or Khabib is going to show up. This is the 5th time this fight has been rescheduled. We've been robbed with some crazy, stupid coincidences and some brain fart moments like tiramisu and with Khabib. That was one of the most insane things ever, and it was really devastating to all the fans, including myself, not to see that fight happening because of such stupid reasons. So, there's a history would state that, one of these guys is not going to show up, and we will need somebody to fill in, just like all these previous 4 times. And, Conor would be willing to do that. But again, April is 3 months from now. Conor just fought, and he's been unscathed. He can easily fight in March, He could easily fight next month, in February. I'm not sure what's happening in February, but, man, if you need him, he's ready to go. So, I'm not a fan of this scenario. After Masvidal fight, be my guest, do what you want. Another thing is Justin Gaethje, but I don't know, man. To be frank, I'm not exactly interested in that fight. Masvidal, to me, is the fight. It would be awesome if he fought Gaethje. It would be entertaining. Just to see Conor against somebody like Gaethje is definitely going to be fireworks all over the place. And Gaethje is another one who's a wild man. He doesn't hold any punches. Of course, that would be magical. Of course, that would be special. It would be, everything you would hope it is. But Masvidal could be historically good. This could break all the pay per view records that we have at the UFC. So, and it's just something that I really, really want to observe. I think both guys really fit each other well. I don't think Dana White and Masvidal himself said that he's just too big for Conor. I really don't believe that. Again, Masvidal, just like Cowboy, is another one. He fought at 55, no problem. So, these guys are not the biggest welterweights. They're not Damian Maia's, Colby Covington's, Kamaru Usman's, or Darren Till's. They're guys that have fought at the same weight class that Conor has fought and knocked people out. So I think they have pretty much similar body type. Masvidal is not the tallest guy. He's probably going to be a thicker guy. But still, that means that most likely speed advantage will go to Conor. Maybe power advantage will go to Masvidal, but who knows? Conor drops people left and right. In three weight classes, as he said. He has now achieved what hasn't been achieved before, which is knocking people out in three different weight classes. So it's pretty legit. He's got a legit case, and I feel like this is definitely a match made in heaven. So. Oh my God, Dana White, somebody please just make that fight happen. I couldn't be more excited about that. So anyway, let's move on. This fight, it seems like it happened ages ago. It was just 5 days ago, 6 days ago, but yeah, it's been a while, and now we're moving on to the next weekend, and MMA is still stacked. Next weekend, both UFC and Bellator are opening up with great cards. I mean, UFC just did last weekend, and they're following up with another fight card, not as flashy, obviously, but Bellator is opening up with a good one. Actually, a better fight card for sure than UFC's. Julia Budd is fighting Chris Cyborg. I mean, Chris Cyborg, that's always exciting. That's the main event of the evening. And needless to say, I mean, they have Raymond Daniels fighting Jason King. I don't know Jason King, but I mean, Raymond Daniels, that's enough said. Darian Caldwell fighting Adam Borix. Okay, that's a good one. Henry Corrales and Juan Archuleta. I'm a huge Archuleta fan. Not even sure why, but he's the guy who's delivering good finishes, good fights. Really got his ass handed to him by Patricky Pitbull, but that was a championship fight. So I don't blame the guy. I guess he's not the greatest of the greatest, but still he's definitely an elite fighter in Bellator. So I'm always excited to fight to observe Archuleta fighting. And Sergio Pettis is actually debuting in Bellator 2 against Alfred Kashakian. Yeah, I don't know this guy. Sounds Armenian or something. But Sergio Pettis, exciting as hell. I really thought that he can surpass his brother, especially lately. I mean, Anthony I don't know. I'm a huge fan of Anthony Pettis. I started watching UFC, started watching MMA with Pettis, the year that he threw the Showtime kick, it was the year that I started watching, and obviously I fell in love with him immediately. But he just does not deliver anymore. He does not improve. It seems like his stand up is pretty much as it was before. He really relies on him being just a faster fighter, and that doesn't happen all the time. And I don't know. Anyway, it's not about Anthony. It's about Sergio. Sergio is fighting this weekend, debuting in Bellator against Kashakian. So anyway, who cares who he's fighting? I mean, this is his debut coming out party, so Pettis has to show up. And Aaron Pico fighting some scrub in prelims. That doesn't matter. I mean, a lot of people are behind Aaron Pico, and I don't know. It's a good chance somebody's getting knocked out because Pico definitely has vicious hands, but he's got a glass chin. I think that's been pretty much proven, and people who are saying this to be otherwise, I question their logic. Pico, coming from boxing world, it really seems like he's just he's been through some wars probably in boxing gyms, and he cannot take a punch anymore, especially with the small gloves. People finish him left and right. So So yeah, he gets finished, but there's a good chance that he can finish you as well. So it's an exciting fight card. Overall, Bellator is better this weekend than UFC. In UFC, we pretty much have obviously Curtis Blades fighting JDS. Amazing fight, but it could be boring. Curtis Blades has ways to make it boring. But I mean, JDS is never boring. I mean, JDS is a goddamn finisher and so lethal. And then we have Dos Anjos fighting Michael Chiesa. So good fights. Good fights. Besides that, it's a shit show. So there you go. UFC has just a couple to offer, but Bellator pretty much is stacked. if you if you know Bellator, if you know their fighters, you would recognize that this is one heck of a card provided by them this weekend. So it's pretty exciting, something to watch. I'm definitely going to watch something, maybe everything. I mean, why not? Bellator is happening usually on Fridays. I'm pretty sure that it's the same case here, and UFC is happening on Saturdays. So it's a great weekend of fights, and I would encourage you watching that. So yeah, let me just take a quick break because I'm getting hoarse again. So I'm just gonna grab a sip of water and then come back with some NBA talk because we have Zion and All Star starters being announced. So stay tuned. All right, so we are back and we have to talk about the topic of the week pretty much. I mean, the new poster boy, Zion Williamson, has finally debuted, like officially as a professional in NBA. He had spectacular moments throughout the preseason, but preseason, as we all know, really doesn't count. And yeah, ever since that, Zion was out for 40 goddamn games. Got his meniscus torn, and he was supposed to be out from between 6 to 8 weeks, and somehow, some way, that expanded to 12. I guess that makes sense. A rookie just introduced, and I expressed my skepticism about this guy right from the get go. I mean, I really feel like he's the guy who's about to break, just like Porzingis, for example. It doesn't surprise me that he's dealing with all this stuff because man, he looks like a guy who just cannot sustain what he's doing. And the same thing with Zion. He seemed to me like a candidate for all the surgeries in the world, especially when it comes to his knees. So I wasn't surprised that it took him longer, and I think that was the right approach. But you thought that after missing 12 weeks, maybe once he comes back, he's really going to blow the doors off everybody. Like he's going to come back only when he's ready. Because if the doctors say 8 weeks, players usually push it. Maybe they will come back in 7, maybe in 6. It's always a possibility, and especially for a young guy. I mean, a young person, a young player who's only, I think he's 19, right? He should come back real fast. He should heal up real nice. 6 weeks, no problem. And then it's all about him getting into condition, you know, getting used to playing and scrimmaging with everybody. So once he's going to come back, he's going to be just pure fire. Well, that wasn't the case. So I watched that game Wednesday night on ESPN. Big debut, obviously, against the Spurs. And I was just happy that he's finally here with us, that he's finally happy because, Steph Curry's hurt. LeBron is old. There's Giannis, there's Luka, but, the ratings are down because there's no real powerhouse coming from United States anymore. I mean, we're talking about Luka Doncic and Giannis Antetokounmpo, both guys from Europe, actually dominating the league and really dominating the All-Star ballot, at least at the beginning. LeBron, still takes all the votes, but I mean, he's 35. So how much longer do you think he can do it? Obviously, not too long. Let's hope for another year. Let's hope maybe for 2. But if you're hoping for more of his domination, I don't know. You got to be delusional. I don't believe that it's going to take that long. So they need somebody to take over the reins. And as I said, it's hard when the sweethearts of the league are out. Kyrie is one of the more liked players by the fans, but he's been injured. KD is injured, who's arguably the best player in the world. Kawhi is just boring as fuck. And Steph is injured too. So, there's no sweetheart anymore to root for. And Zion was that guy, especially after the preseason, which was pure fire coming from him. Yeah, it was a bummer that he couldn't start it. So now after he comes back, this was a long waited debut. And yeah, I couldn't wait to see him too. Because I was super impressed. You guys can remember that myself and Buddy L, we were just raving about his abilities. And again, keeping in mind that it is a preseason, but goddamn, he looked impressive. So he comes back, and what can I say? He looks fucking fat. He looks, out of shape. He runs kind of gingerly. Stephen A put it well. He said gimpy, and I couldn't agree more. I don't know. I guess he's young and awkward. Maybe. Guy's that big, so you cannot expect him to move like a normal person because he's just not normal. He's built like a brick shit house. So maybe he's running that way. I haven't seen him that much before. I just saw a ton of highlights. So I never paid attention to how the guy runs, but to me, it seemed that he's running a bit off. And whatever. That was not the biggest concern. The biggest concern was that he did seem kind of fat. And well, what do you know? The beginning doesn't go too well. I don't know if he even scored anything in the first quarter. Gets taken out from the game pretty much 3 minutes in. Definitely seemed misplaced, both offensively and defensively. Ball was slipping out of his hands, running into guys, losing the ball while dribbling. It's normal stuff. When you miss a ton of time from basketball, you just you're so eager that your mind is quicker than your body can respond. You already know what you're going to do by the time you will receive the ball. You're most likely going to dunk it with ferociousness, but you have not received the ball yet. Your mind is thinking quick, but your body did not even catch the ball yet, and usually you're not able to. The ball slips out of your hands, and you can see, he had some slippery hands out there. And it did not look pretty, but it looked understandable. Everything was pretty much understandable with the guy missing a half of a season. But yeah, the second quarter, pretty much the same picture. But, immediately, still, he wasn't looking dominant. He wasn't looking amazing or anything, but he was looking, that he's got some passing ability, that he's got great court vision, high basketball IQ, and you can see that he's still fucking explosive, man. He's taking rebounds where you are not supposed to take them. His second jump is so fast. When he get blocked by Pirtle, he immediately it seems like before he touches land, he immediately jumps. It's like he's skipping time frames or whatever. It's very much Sean Marion like, I must say. Sean Marion was known for having that quick second jump. Man, Zion is like that, but with more power and just weight on him. So it's something to watch. And obviously, all of that goes into the fourth quarter, where he goes on a tear and puts up 17 straight points. Nobody else on the court scored from the Pelicans side but Zion. He delivers 4 threes. Obviously, knowing Pop, he's comfortable with Zion shooting that stuff because he's not known for his shot. His shot is flat as fuck. So, you shouldn't expect him to shoot 100%. I wouldn't be surprised if he misses the next 4 shots and maybe the next 8 shots for that matter. But, he made it. He made it when they needed him to make it. And, then he goes over DeMar DeRozan, catch a lob, and finishes off with the layup. Again, the Pirtle stuff, you can see, man, he's ferocious. He wants to grab the ball and, put it into the basket. You can see, that he's just boiling inside. And that energy really showed, and he was able to put up 17 straight points for the Pelicans. And also, again, the great court vision, good passes, not all of them, resulted in assists because the guys like Eatwan Moore was not able to make that shot, but he hooked up Brandon Ingram with some nice passes. Zion Williamson is a problem. He's a dynamo. It's not just brute power and, all the explosive stuff. He's definitely explosive, but he's got that nice touch. Around the rim, he's very capable of finishing it with a nice soft touch off the backboard. Very much LeBron like. I mean, when you look at the guys like that, I mean, they're built so unprecedentedly almost. They're so big and strong and powerful and muscular. You only think about them like they should participate in dunk contest. But at the same time, when they go around the basket and it's about the time not to dunk it, but actually finish it off with a nice English off the glass, they have that too. They have that touch. And Zion does that with two hands, just like LeBron. I'm not even sure that LeBron had that at the beginning of his career, but Zion does. He's a left-hand shooter, but at the same time, he's finishing layups with the sweet touch off the glass with right hand, no problem. So Zion is going to be the problem. But my question is, how the hell did he get so big? He took all this time, and for some reason, he's out of shape. I thought that they're just making sure that he's going to get into the shape. Another thing that's must be warning is just probably is one of those guys that he's really he's got that what's the word in English, predisposition of putting a lot of mass, and not in the good way, not just muscle but also fat. So maybe if he doesn't watch himself, if he's not disciplined enough, this guy is going to get big real fast. We know guys like that. I mean, Shaq, Shaq is one of those guys. Obviously, if he's not staying disciplined, if he's not running on a treadmill and doing all the cardio workouts, soon all the muscle and all that good stuff is going to turn into fat because obviously the guy needs to eat a lot and needs to carry all the weight. So it requires a lot of energy, and sometimes if you just go off the rail just a little bit, boom, you got that extra layer of fat. So he really has to watch himself, and most likely, because of meniscus tear, he had to, he couldn't move, he couldn't do all the cardio work. So maybe that's why he got so big. So he needs to watch himself. He really needs to be disciplined, and hopefully he can do that. Hopefully he has the passion, and not to be lazy, but really perfecting his craft. Because if he does, then it should be no problem unless there's injuries. The injuries, it's really worrisome because he should lose weight, not gain more. If he loses weight, then maybe he can sustain his athleticism and still be this explosive and all that. But if he doesn't, he's going to be a perfect candidate for not only meniscus tears, but ACL and MCL tears for sure as well. So, not wishing that on him, but it's a warning sign that Zion is one of the guys that's easy to. He's got no problem of putting extra weight. So yeah, hopefully he manages that. Hopefully the next time we see him, he's getting better. He's getting thinner, more fitter, and he delivers all the spectacular highlights that he delivered in that fourth quarter. I mean, that was so insane. And then obviously he's got taken out midway through the fourth quarter. And, people talk shit because obviously it did seem kind of funny because Alvin Gentry, he already gets ready for a substitution. I think Derek Favors was supposed to substitute Zion, and he's at the scoring table. But then Zion goes on a tear, and, Alvin Gentry has to take Favors back to the bench. But then he's like, shit, man. He's obviously he's getting pressure from the executives to, on the minutes restriction and whatnot. So he's got to put Favors back in there again. But Zion still was on such a tear that one more time he was about to put Favors back on a bench until he actually called for a timeout and, was forced to do that. So yeah, that seemed a bit ridiculous from that point of view. And, the commentators wanted to see him. And basically everybody says the same thing. I wanted to see Zion play. But I got to say, I didn't mind that too much because Zion did look gassed. He looked like that's all he had, for today. So that's all, folks. I mean, that's his first game. So don't be too crazy. I don't think that the Pelicans win with him. And I don't think he gets injured, but once you're gassed, it's way easier, to sprain an ankle, to do some awkward move, and man, God forbid, injuring a knee again. I mean, that would be terrible. That would be a disaster. So nobody needs that. And Obviously, judging from Zion, who's a rookie, who has to listen to his coach, gain his respect and trust. Obviously, he's not going to argue with Gentry, and he did not do that. We all saw that quite explicitly. That Gentry had to explain why he's being taken out of the game. But at the same time, I'm sure that deep inside, Zion knows that he just wasn't ready to continue. So I don't know. That's my take. That was just one game. Obviously, they lost, but who cares? All we care about is this guy being healthy, getting into shape, and just dominating this game the way he can. So cannot wait for the next one. I gotta say, the Pelicans was one of my favorite teams to watch at the beginning of the season, and with all the guys coming back, with Drew Holiday and Brandon Ingram coming out of the nowhere, this team is super interesting to watch. With Lonzo Ball shooting much better now. And you can see, Ball just cannot wait to hook Zion with some lobs and just, all sorts of freight train passes. So yeah, I cannot wait to see that dynamic. I cannot wait to see actually Zion and Brandon Ingram. It seems like, Zion he's a willing passer, first of all, but he's also a very smart and good passer. He doesn't need much to deliver a huge pass across the field, across the court. So, we need to look forward to that as well. There's a lot of things to look forward to. So this was just the one game, good enough effort, but still, it's hard. It's hard, and let's just recognize that and support the guy and support the coach as well. Alvin Gentry is a heck of a coach. Nobody should second guess his decisions, and also at the same time, he's receiving a lot of pressure from the executives, most likely as well. So good things. Waiting for Zion and for Pelicans, most likely. Just please stay healthy, my man. All right, guys, I'm going to take another quick break and come back to you with All-Star discussion, All-Star starters discussion. So stay tuned. So the All-Stars, they have officially been announced. The starters have officially been announced just this past day. And the reserves, the interesting part will be announced the next week. With their starters, actually, there's not a lot of controversy. If we start with the Eastern Conference, Trae Young made it, Kemba Walker, Pascal Siakam, and Joel Embiid. Well, with Trae Young, obviously, there's a lot of controversy there. But I don't know. I mean, Beal is not an upgrade, and Kyrie has been injured. So, if you want to make a case for Ben Simmons, I guess that would be the only one. But Ben Simmons, at least the fans, they don't dig him. They don't dig him at all. His ranking from the fans is number 8. Yeah, only number 8. Players voted him number 4. So, what the hell? Who the players vote for? Oh, so they voted for Bradley Beal to take the second spot. Everybody agreed on Kemba in some way, besides the fans. But media and the players agreed on Kemba being number 1. And that's obviously out of the question. The fans, they just vote for whoever they want to, and they always like Kyrie. And they like Trae. I mean, Trae and Luka, the two guys, they're just inseparable. They will their paths and the discussions about their greatness will intertwine until they retire because of everything that took place with Atlanta trading Luka in order to receive Trae and all that jazz. I mean, it's really amazing, and both guys are just fan favorites, and rightfully so. Look, Trae is playing like a superstar. I know he's playing for a shitty team, pretty much the worst team in NBA, even though the Warriors have somewhat of the worst record, but at the same time, we all understand that the Warriors, they're just in a little predicament, and they're just taking a break. They're taking a break before they kick, I wouldn't say everybody's asses next season, but man, it depends what they get at the lottery. If they get number 1 pick, or as I mentioned before, if they get top 5 pick, most definitely they will get the best player off that draft. Especially when this draft doesn't have, an obvious front runner like Zion was last year. So the Warriors are going to be scary to the next year. The Hawks, I don't know what the fuck they're doing. They're just in the lottery every single year, getting all the picks, but yet not making a lot of noise. I really thought they're going to make the playoffs. But anyway, this is neither there nor there, neither here nor there. The team sucks, but Trae Young is awesome. Now you might say, that it's really the system designed for Trae to look amazing and cool and whatnot. But I don't know. I wouldn't be so sure. I wouldn't be so sure actually on that. I wouldn't be so sure to make that my legit argument. I think that Trae is still amazing. We saw major flashes last year, and he's continuing to do work this year as well. So I don't have a huge problem over it. I think he's ready for the spotlight. He's definitely one of the star players in this league already, and he's beloved by the fans. So God damn it, give the guy a chance to play. So yeah, Kemba made it, but as I said, he's not a fan favorite. Kyrie actually was, but Kyrie couldn't make it here for obvious reasons. So yeah, no controversy here. The only thing is, well, Jimmy Butler and Pascal Siakam. So Pascal Siakam made it this time around, but I don't know. I was rooting for Jimmy. I would actually, if I had to make a pick, I would have picked Jimmy. If you're looking at their statistics, the Heat have slightly better record, but pretty much the same record. The Heat have one win more and less of a loss, one loss. Siakam leads in points over Butler. But Siakam, he started the season like an MVP candidate with like 27 points and, 8 rebounds. Now he's 23 and 7. Jimmy's better at assisting and steals. Jimmy's still such a badass with the defense. Although Siakam is better with blocks. But overall PER, like, player efficiency, Butler is ahead. So I don't know. To me, Butler is, he's more of a star player. He's got more of a star quality, but at the same time, Siakam is making such leaps that it's impossible to deny the guy, right? So I mean, I don't know. Siakam missed a few games. Butler hasn't. So I would have picked Butler, but then I've heard of Bill Simmons making a good point on his podcast. He said that a few years back, and I really forgot about this, but Butler decided not to play in the All-Star game. I think he was an addition of some injured player. And he said, yeah, fuck it. I just don't feel like it. I'm not going to participate today. And, nobody really took it like a big deal over it or whatnot. But, I mean, if he was a starter, I don't know. I don't know how I would feel about that. So, yeah, I guess he doesn't really value the game that much. So, for Siakam, based on his Twitter reaction, which was caught pretty much live on video, it means a lot to the guy. So give it to him. I really have no problem. I would have put Butler in, but I have no problem. Not like Chuck. I mean, Chuck was all over the place about Butler being a starter over everyone, besides Giannis, I would assume, which also kind of makes sense, because he's definitely a player of a second best team in the Eastern Conference. Third or second. Anyway, good enough team. So yeah, I guess that's a good point, but I don't know. Siakam was just as good this season, and as I said, he's just been making improvement after improvement every single year. It's just that he started so greatly that right now it seems a bit of a bummer that he cannot sustain that, but you cannot hold against the guy. I mean, he's still legitimately amazing. So yeah, that's the starting five. I mean, Jimmy Butler is going to make it to the All-Star game no matter what. He's probably going to be the first pick. I mean, it's not official. It's not going to be like that, but I'm sure that he's the next guy. He's the sixth guy in this All-Star game for the Eastern Conference. That's for sure. The West, there's no argument. I mean, there's no argument at all. Actually, James Harden made it. Luka Doncic made it. Kawhi Leonard, LeBron James, Anthony Davis. Nobody else deserves more of a spotlight to be the starter than these five guys. So it's pretty unanimous. I have no idea who would disagree with this. So yeah, I do not see too much potential for outrageous snubs, to be honest with you either. I think that the reserve is going to be deserving. It's not going to be. Obviously, again, the reason is injuries, especially in the Western Conference, like Steph and Clay not playing. I mean, Steph, Clay, and Draymond. Oh, by the way, and KD. All of those guys were actually part of All Star team for what, like 3 years, right? Actually, more than that because they were part of that All Star team, but not part of the same Warriors team when KD was part of OKC. So yeah, there's a lot of open spaces for for some legit guys. I just hope that I I would like to say that I don't see any potential snubs as long as Rudy Gobert and Domantas Sabonis makes it. Sabonis, obviously, for obvious reasons, because he's Lithuanian and I'm rooting for the guy. But at the same time, he really deserves it. I think he's the best Pacers player right now. I guess there is an argument whether him or Brogdon are the leaders. Well, is the leader. I would say it's Sabonis until Oladipo comes back, and for him to get back into shape and really become a leader again, it's going to take some time. So Sabonis, throughout this season, most likely will be the best Pacers player. And then in the playoffs, we'll see. Most likely, Oladipo will take over. But man, oh man, he's got to make it. Besides Jimmy Butler, he's a sure thing, in my opinion. Another lock to make it. And Gobert as well. I mean, Gobert has been snubbed already so many times. He's been underrated so many times. Not this time. Give this guy a chance. I mean, he's the best center in the world right now. Considering that Anthony Davis is not a center, Rudy Gobert deserves to be there. You know, so yeah. Hopefully those guys get there. I mean, I would like to see Adebayo there. I would like to see Jalen Brown there. Brandon Ingram, I think, whom I have always been skeptical about. I was always Lonzo guy. Buddy L was Brandon Ingram guy, and I was very skeptical about him. I still feel like he's got a very obvious ceiling because he's just so thin. He's not very physical. That game that I watched him against San Antonio, you can see his physical limitations. Once the guys get rough on him, he's got no way. Like there's no end ones with Brandon Ingram. He just loses the ball once he gets fouled. I mean, his arms go down. So he needs to get into more of a just needs to go to the weight room. I think KD did that perfectly. You can see KD right now. Obviously, again, he's not exactly LeBron James under the rim once he gets hacked, but he's got a chance to do that. He's got a chance to finish it under the basket while being fouled and just endure the physicality. Brandon Ingram is not there yet, but at the same time, if you ignore that, he's very close to be a superstar. I don't know, man. I feel like he's the best player for the Pelicans. I would like to say that it's Drew Holiday. I'm a huge fan of Drew, but he's also hasn't been that healthy and hasn't been that consistent. And Ingram was delivering big time in big games and big moments. So yeah, I really root for the guy to make it to the All-Star game. I'm sure he's going to make it, but if he doesn't, that will be a snub. That's for sure. And I'm rooting for Jaylen Brown because this season he's been amazing. I'm rooting for him more than Tatum. I think Tatum is a bit overrated and still volatile as fuck. Sometimes he looks like a trash player. Sometimes he looks like the best player in the Eastern Conference. Pick a side. I don't know. And yeah, Adebayo for obvious reasons. I mean, Miami Heat is just such a pleasant surprise this season. One of the most interesting teams to watch. And really, really happy for Jimmy, happy for Adebayo, happy for Eric Spoelstra, for Pat Riley, for Miami Beach. I mean, it's a heck of a place. One heck of a fun place to watch games at. And yeah, I'm rooting for that team for sure. So yeah, there you go, guys. I wonder what's going to happen the next week. Maybe then we'll have a bit more in-depth discussion. Maybe Buddy Al is going to join me remotely. We're actually figuring something out where we can not share the same studio, but actually be on the same podcast. So I'm hoping that the next time you hear me, you will hear Buddy Al as well, because yeah, there's a lot to talk about. We still have to touch on UEFA Champions League. Top 16. It's coming up, so I would love to discuss that with him, especially with the Liverpool matchup. That it's very, very sexy. And yeah, the All Star reserves will be announced by that time, and we are gonna have to discuss it. Whether it's we've seen some snubs, whether or not, especially if one of these players that I mentioned is not going to make it, you know, I'm sure both of us will make sure to shit on people who did not pick those guys. So yeah, but for today, I think it's over. It's been nice talking to you. I hope you enjoyed the show. As always, don't forget to subscribe, to rate the show, to review the show, whether it's on Spotify or on iTunes or YouTube, wherever you please to listen to it. Please do so, and please do all those steps that I mentioned. And if you have an opinion about All Stars, if you have an opinion about Conor, who should fight next, and whatever else, if you have a question, just hit me up on podcast.its for I Think Sports at gmail.com. Everything is very welcome, and I would love to discuss that and bring this up during the podcast. So yeah, for now, just want to thank you all to listening, and just enjoy the fights, enjoy the weekend of sports, until we see each other one more time. Thank you. Until the next time.